Well, from Florida's Gulf Coast, where the sun-kissed waves inspire us, thank you for joining us for this episode of Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll, where we navigate the intersection of talent optimization and business strategy with wit, wisdom, and a dash of sibling rivalry. I'm your co-host, Tim Stockwell, joined by my sister, a passionate schnoodle mama, a women's sports fan, a business and talent strategist, a mental fitness coach, a trusted advisor, board chair, my lovely sister, Mary Stockwell. And Mary, you also like football, so you got to put that in there too.
Football, love football.
Yeah, you know you do.
Well, hockey
So,
too.
yeah,
Yep.
how are you this morning? Yes, I know you like hockey. Yeah,
I'm doing well this morning. It's a gorgeous day here today.
good deal. As it is here.
Well, welcome back to Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll. If you loved our last conversation with recruiting powerhouse AJ Vollmoeller, get ready for another round of straight talking insights. Today, we're shifting the focus from finding talent to shaping talent. AJ shares his career coaching secrets from resume revamps to acing the interview and navigating the evolving workplace. Whether you're a job seeker or a leader shaping your team, this episode is for you. All right, let's dig right in. Hey, AJ, last episode, which you so graciously joined us on, you talked a little bit about your book and you gave us some examples. At the end of that, we said, hey, on the next episode, let's come back and get a couple stories from you. So are you still game for that? And what'd you come up with?
Absolutely. I chose a couple that they're all on the funny side, but these are two that can also provide some good insight of what not to do, so you can run with it if in your next interview. Can you see the book? Here it is, How to Not Get Hired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool.
can see it. Yeah.
And so just to jump right in, I do a lot of interviewing, coaching, resume writing, alongside the recruiting and staffing industry, but I do also work with the candidates. And I've seen a ton of funny things throughout my career, from resumes to interviewing blunders. And one or two of them that really stick out is one, the title in the book is called Urinating Eugene. And every title in the book, I think we talked about Bookshelf Bong Bobby, we've got Urinating Eugene. They all have funny titles like this. And Urinating Eugene, I was working internally at a small little company called IBM. And I was internal talent acquisition for inside sales. And their inside sales team, some of them that they were hiring were entry level. So I was interviewing candidates that are fresh out of college, entry level into their career. Some of them, it was their first or second professional interview ever in their life. So I expected to have some blunders, but Eugene, and that's not his real name, he definitely took the cake. So he shows up and he was dressed nice, pair of khakis, button down shirt, a tie, dress shoes. So I take him into the office, and the way my office was set up, my desk had a flat front, so they couldn't get too close. So they sit a little bit backwards, so I could see, to their kneecaps, basically, as they're sitting in the chair. And as we're going through just the initial formalities, building rapport, we're not even heavy into the interview yet. I notice a spot on his khakis. And I thought maybe something was in his pocket. Then I thought maybe I gave him a water, or he had a water that he got from the lobby and spilled a little bit on his pants. So I didn't pay attention to it. And then I noticed it was growing. And I'm looking. And I'm trying to remain professional, but I see a growing wet spot in this candidate's pants. So I finally stop. And I look at him, I said, "Do you need to excuse yourself?" I'm working for a powerhouse F100 company, so I have to be as professional and politically correct as possible. So I asked him, I said, "Do you need to excuse yourself to use the bathroom?" He goes, "I'm so sorry. I thought it would be rude to ask to go to the bathroom. It would make me late in the interview, or if we already started the interview, it would be rude to dismiss myself." And I looked at him, I said, "No, peeing your pants in the middle of an interview is rude. Asking to go to the bathroom is not." So, I mean, I I was so floored.
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
know I didn't know what to do. So I was sitting there and I explained to him where the bathroom was. So he gets up, he leaves. And the bathroom in this office setup was, it was in a high rise where there's two entrances and exits, one on either side because we had the whole floor. He went in one side, must have went out the other, and right downstairs and never saw him
Never
again.
came back.
So eh, the lesson of this, be comfortable first. If you know you might have to go to the bathroom, maybe you had a coffee before you went into the interview is going to be a half hour, 45 minutes, use the restroom. If you have to use the restroom in the middle of interview, it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. Everybody has to pee, and so it's not like you're asking to run to lunch in the middle of an interview. So you can be excused in the middle of an interview if need be. You can do anything except pee your pants. You know?
Oh my
So,
gosh.
I like to think that urinating Eugene is still telling this story as well to his friends and family.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
ever repeated it, actually.
She
Yeah,
probably never-
he forgot about it until he hears this
Probably-
episode.
Yeah, it's a trauma. It's a trauma in his life now. So.
Correct. It's like I
Let me just,
effectively blocked it out.
Let me just put this out to viewers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this one,
That's
on
right.
your Eugene, right? So,
Or similar stories,
or some stories, yeah, make sure that you share them with us at one of our Meritas Advisory Group channels, because it's, I've not heard that one before.
Yeah.
And as we learned on the first episode, if AJ gets enough of these great stories from us, he's going to put out how not to get hired too.
Yeah, I don't mind listing people as co-authors. If you've got enough stories, send them on over. We can build the book together. But and then another good one, and this one just kind of correlates to building rapport when you're on an interview, and this is obviously directed towards the candidates. But when you walk into an interview, look around the office. Find something you can build rapport on. Don't just start talking about things that are interesting to you, because they may not be interesting to the person that you're talking to. And now, rather than engaging them, you're going to lose them. Perfect example of this is a candidate went into an interview with it was a CEO and the hiring manager. It was a double interview in the same office. Looked around the office, and these people were in Pittsburgh, so they're nowhere near water or anything like that, boating community. And this person went into the interview and they asked him, well, what do you like to do in your spare time? Well, nothing gave them the clue of that either of these people liked boating. They actually don't like boating. They don't boat. They've never owned a boat. They may fish off a dock once in a blue moon, but nothing is interesting about boating to them. Well, this candidate proceeds to discuss his love and passion for boating and all the things about boating for 20 minutes.
Oh,
If you want a good way to lose the interviewer's attention during an interview, talk about something they have no interest in. You know, so I always tell people, make sure you look around, see something you can relate to in the office or in that person's background, as long as it's not a bong on the bookshelf, and just find something to relate to and talk about that, because this way you'll keep the person's attention rather than just spewing off about something that they probably have no interest in, and it's not even professionally related.
wow.
That's such good
Great.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. That's a pearl of wisdom people really need to take, because that's so easy. You don't even have to prepare for that. You
Yeah.
just be aware.
Oh, correct. Awareness. And then also, not to take up too much time, but the dressing to impress. That's always number one. I've seen it, people slack on this so many times. Always dress for the job you want, not the one you have. If you're interviewing on a Friday, just because that company has casual Fridays does not mean that you can adapt to that for your interview. You're not part of the company yet. You're trying to become part of the company. And one perfect example is this. I had another college student who, for whatever reason, didn't understand the differences between a suit and a tuxedo. Maybe they were never coached in their lives. Maybe they just didn't have that influence, whatever the case may be. A for effort, absolute A for effort. But this candidate came into the interview wearing a pair of tuxedo pants with the satin line down the side, a tuxedo jacket with satin lapels, the whole 9 yards, a plaid shirt,
Mm.
a solid color tie,
Plaid shirt.
plaid shirt, like almost like a lumberjack shirt, uh, solid tie, and a pair of All-Stars, pair of Chuck Taylors.
Yeah.
Was
A
it for
for
a creative role?
no, it was for a sales role.
Well,
Yeah, and you know, you A for effort, but you can't help but look at that. So, absolutely, he did the right thing by wanting to dress to impress, but stay a little bit more keen
yeah,
on the combination of items you're using
yeah,
to impress.
yeah. Sort of goes to how to get hired at first sight.
Yeah, I see what you did there, Tim.
Oh, anything you want to share about that, AJ?
Oh boy. So in my career, I'm used to being the match.com for hiring managers and companies, you know, and for candidates. I find that perfect match. And after years and years of dating and not being able to perfectly match myself, not understanding why I can do it for all my clients and candidates, but can't do it for myself in my personal life, I went out on a whim, went out on a limb, and got married at first sight
Yeah.
on a reality TV show. And it was, I actually used it as a learning process, one about myself,
Yeah.
but also questions they were asking me to describe and unwrap previous relationships. What went right? What went wrong? For the poaching aspect of my job, it's exactly what I do. So I was being asked questions that I realized in a different form, I could also ask clients to help drill down on the candidates they want. I can ask candidates to help better understand their background and you know their skill level. So going through this process and finding myself a wife, I've been married almost 6 years now. We've been married.
Wow.
I also learned a lot about the correlation between recruiting and just professional, or I'm sorry, personal relationships.
Mhm. I bet that was a fascinating process to go through.
It
And
was
excuse
intense.
me, and to be able to correlate it back to your business.
Yeah,
You know, that whole process was like so encompassing, I would guess, for you. So
I didn't realize it right away that
yeah.
it correlated back to the business, but I was like, everything they're doing, I do in a professional form rather than a personal form. So it worked out, and as the candidate of that operation or that position, I knew that I had to be widely open about everything, likes, dislikes.
Mhm.
The more information I could give them, the better the, I don't want to call my wife a candidate, but the better the person they could find for me.
Yeah.
And that just ranged true on all ends. You know, for the clients, the more information you give me about the job, the better the candidate I'm going to find you. For the candidates,
Excellent.
the less you lie about your background, or I don't want to say lie, I don't, that's a very hard word. The less you exaggerate about your background, uh, the better it's going to be. You know, it's you just have to be truthful. If you don't have knowledge in something but you want to learn it, say that. Don't say, "Oh, I have knowledge but I'm learning," because anything that's on a resume is fair game to talk about, even if it's not related to that direct job. If it's on your resume, I'm discussing it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks for
Great
sharing that.
advice.
That's really awesome and a great
Yeah.
segue into some of the questions we want to dig into now. So um, we've all seen tons of resumes. Some work, some don't work. But after seeing so many of the blenders, what are your top 3 tips for job seekers to create a resume that really cuts through that clutter?
The format is number one. You want a format that's easily read from top to bottom. I do see a lot of resumes that have a left and right column. A lot of times, the left column, which is what everybody would read first, because when we read a book, you read the left side first, is always just the information like name, skill sets, maybe a little blur, but enough to take up enough time that by the time you get to the other side of the page, you're really over reading it. You kind of like, okay, I've learned enough about this person, and I'm not even to their professional experience section yet. So you want it to be easily read from top to bottom. You want to have months and years for your dates of employment. I see a lot of times with just years, and that's not acceptable because that's making the recruiter or the hiring manager have to guess. And what I mean by guess is if you have 2018 to 2019 listed for a job, the person reading your resume has no idea if you were there for 1 month from December 2018 to January 2019, for an entire year, or anything in between. And now they're maybe having to go look it up on LinkedIn or whatever the case may be. Odds are, if they have to guess about something, they're just pushing your resume aside and going to the next one that they don't have to guess on. And that's a big thing, is you should never hide immediately needed information like that on a resume. And unless, as we discussed in the last episode, unless in a creative position like graphic design or an art position, you don't want to have colors and graphics on your resume. Colors on a resume attract the eye. And a lot of times the colors are misused. It's a line here or a bold-faced font here with a different color. And now the eyes are bouncing all over the resume, looking at the colors rather than easily reading it and finding the immediately relevant information from top to bottom. So it's really just about aesthetics. I mean, aesthetics are the big thing for a resume.
That's interesting. It's a great comment for folks to understand is how somebody's going to read it and what stands out and where, and is that in a cohesive methodology?
Yep.
Can that be followed?
Yeah. Great tips.
Yeah, and as for the colors and the artwork, I tell everybody a resume is meant to be professional, not to be hung on a refrigerator. So don't go overboard trying to make it stand out unless you're using your resume as a calling card, meaning you're in graphic design, you're in the arts industry, and you want to show off your talent by the way you designed your resume.
Yeah. How about length of resume? 1 page, 2 page, 6 pages? You talked a little bit about that in our first episode, but
Not 37 pages.
yeah.
I say 2 pages, 2 full pages is ideal.
Yeah.
Depending on the length of their career, depending on certifications, depending on the amount of engagements, if you're a consultant or a contractor, you're going to have a lot more engagements. 2 pages is normally good. 2.5 pages is acceptable. 3 pages is the absolute max. Whatever's on that third page, don't make it important because it's probably not going to get read. So, certifications or something like that you can put on that third page, but you don't want any extremely relevant information on that third page. So, 1.5 to 2 pages is typically what I like to see.
Yeah.
Great advice.
What I like to see in resumes too, AJ, is, and what I feel is important, is that they're recent, relevant, and results driven.
Yeah.
I think the 3 R's that
Yeah.
that I would look for.
I tell every, oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I tell everybody the immediate relevant experience that, whoever's reading your resume, a lot of times they're not hands-on in that position. They don't know that position in and out. They're just comparing your resume to a job description.
Yeah.
So everything that's immediately relevant to that job description or to that job needs to jump off the page. When that person just glances over your resume, they should immediately see your titles. They should immediately see your dates of employment to know that you're not job hopping. They should immediately see sections. So if they want to see your skills, they can just bounce to that really quick. It's all about the flow of the resume.
I agree 100%. So some unforgettable interviews. So aside from these horror stories that we've all heard and you've shared some already, what makes a candidate truly stand out in an interview, especially in today's job market? Now, I'm going to put a caveat there. I'm going to say in a positive way. Some that were
That's good, Mary.
interesting, but in a positive way.
I like to see a candidate that is attentive. Now, I would consider myself a little bit old school. I prefer to do my interviews, those initial pre-qualifying interviews, over the phone than over video conference, only because I've been recruiting for so long. My ear is a lot more trained than my eyes are. So when I am pre-qualifying a candidate, my initial interviews are normally 30 to 40 minutes. That's almost unheard of. I know when I was working in the agency, 15 minutes tops, because it's all about quantity over quality. You just got to turn and burn, it's a numbers game. I do it a little bit differently. I make sure that I have all my candidates pre-qualified, both skill-wise and culturally for that. And one thing that really makes them stand out to me is you can hear when they're taking notes. Or on a video call, you can see if they're looking down to take notes. To me, that shows that they're involved, they're attentive, they want to remember what's going on because they want to move to the next round of the interviews, and they want to have some kind of notes to refer back to, things like that. So taking notes, sitting forward in your chair and really paying attention. Just being attentive is a big thing. A lot of people tell others to relax in an interview. Just don't seem too uptight. Do not lay back in the chair. Do not slouch. Do not seem too comfortable. That is the wrong approach. You are in a professional interview. It is expected there's going to be some level of nerves. And that's at any level, whether you're entry level or whether you're going for an executive level position. You've got 30 years of experience. The nerves are still present because we're humans.
Yeah.
That is to be expected. The person sitting on the other side of that desk, they know that. They know it's not the most comfortable situation for you. So it's okay to be have a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of nerves, but you still want to remain professional and attentive. And that's the big thing, is being attentive.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's shift now into like the winning performance. You're thinking about for you, AJ, in reality TV, those who stand out make the final cut, kind of like you did, and I think like your wife did. And then, so what are some of the parallels between having a memorable performance in an interview and on a reality TV show?
The one piece, or not one, but one of the pieces of advice I give to every candidate before they're going into an interview is I tell them verbatim every time, the one thing that a lot of people forget to bring to the interview is their personality. Do not forget to bring your personality. You can be overly in an interview and it's going to hurt you. The person you're interviewing with more than likely has multiple interviews that day or that week for the same position with your competitors for the same job. Make yourself stand out, build that rapport. If you're there buttoned up the whole time, it comes off as pretty stiff, lack of better words, and nobody wants to hire someone that's that stiff. You want to build the rapport. There's a fine line between being too relaxed and unprofessional and being overly professional. That's exactly where you want to fall, is have the conversation. A sidebar is okay. You don't have to sound robotic. When you reiterate your resume, you should be telling the story of your career, not holding it and reading it verbatim. It should flow. It should just be more of a conversation than you just telling details. And always have checkpoints. Stop when you're going through your resume, stop and ask them, oh, does that, I had this success in my previous job. Would that relate to this one? Or something like that. So they're not listening to you talk for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes straight, kind of like I'm doing right now. And because then they lose attention. So with that said, let me stop talking for a second.
That's great advice. It's so important, remember to pack your personality.
Yep, pack your personality.
I like
You know,
that.
and that's, I think with that example, I think it brings me back to one of the reasons we use predictive index a lot with our clients. In fact, all of our clients, so that the hiring manager learns the behavioral tendencies of those individuals. Because for a lot of people, AJ, as you know, as you've done a lot of interviews, they have a hard time communicating and expressing who they are. They're more introverted. So if the manager has a few more tools to be able to help them understand the candidate, they might be better off. They might be in a better position to be able to help bring that personality out. But clearly that stiffness is something to be very aware of as you're going through the interview process.
Yeah, 100%.
It's different across different industries. Obviously, I don't want to say obviously, but like in technology, it's a little bit more of a straightforward type of personality, a little bit more, I don't want to say straightforward, a little bit quieter of a personality.
Yeah, that's right.
So I do spend a lot of time. I mean, I've been on interviews that I've been trying to pull personality out of the candidates the whole time, you know? Like, it's like just a little bit. I'm joking around and just trying to pull it out. And if I can't pull any personality out of that candidate, no matter what the industry is, because I know the personalities of the hiring managers, because I communicate with them.
Yeah.
I know right away this person, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Culturally,
Culturally, yep.
If it's not going to be good. Yeah. So as you move through stuff, you know, we know you're a really a LinkedIn power user to leverage your brand really clearly. What are some of those overlooked aspects of LinkedIn that job seekers should be optimizing or could be optimizing to help them get the job of their dream?
So LinkedIn Jobs is, I would consider, the most powerful tool for candidates nowadays. Um, Actually, for white collar career positions. If you're blue collar, if you're looking for more entry level, I would say absolutely Indeed, Monster, Job Finder, they're all there as well. But I tell everybody that, you know, Monster, Indeed, Career Builder, Job Finder, all the other platforms, they're great, but everything you find on them, you're going to find on LinkedIn Jobs and then some. I see the older platforms as more outdated. It's almost, to me, similar like going to the help wanted section of your local newspaper. You know, they're outdated. So LinkedIn Jobs, at least for me, and other people may have had a different experience, but LinkedIn Jobs is where I always recommend candidates go. You can attach a resume to it where every time you apply, it automatically just sends it. It's one click apply, everything's there. One mistake I do see a lot is on LinkedIn Jobs, you go to your settings for the LinkedIn Jobs portion, and you can attach a resume there. If you've had multiple versions of your resume, don't attach them all because there's different ones being sent out. So I mean, I've gone into, I update people's LinkedIn profiles for them when I do their resumes, when I write their resumes for them. And I see sometimes 8 or 10 different resumes attached in there. You don't know. It's so keep it streamlined. One resume, it'll pull the keywords off your resume. Make sure you have all at least 50 skills listed that are industry specific skills, not just critical thinking and attention to detail. They need to have keywords because on the opposite end, as a recruiter, that's what I'm looking for when I'm on LinkedIn Recruiter.
Yeah, that's a nugget right there. 50
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Yeah. And earlier said something about being old school, the way you like to interview. And you just said an old school thing. Going to the want ad section of the newspaper.
Yeah.
It's like
I feel like
I bet
half
half
the
our
audience is gonna get it.
population.
Half the audience is going to get it, half won't.
They won't even go, what?
But what? Yeah, I mean, just a little bit outdated.
Yeah, it is good. So, yeah, and so you also help your clients find the right talent right now, which we really appreciate that, and that's why I think your company is called Future Workforce or Future Force, right?
Future
You
Force.
look
Yep.
for the future. Yeah. So, what are the skills or trends you're seeing, and that we should be looking at adapt for the future workplace? Where are we going?
Um, the buzzword now is remote. You know, it has been for quite a while. Everybody wants remote, and it's great. I mean, remote is good for some people. It's not good for a lot of the clients or a lot of the companies because there's been studies that the average person works in a 40-hour work week in the office. They work 36 to 37 hours. That's taking away the coffee breaks and, you know, the BSing outside the office and all of that. So they work about 36 to 37 out of their 40 hours per week. Stay at home kind of, or not stay at home, work from home employees work about 34 to 35.
Okay.
So the employers are losing 2 to 3 hours per employee per week. And that adds up. That's stealing company time. So remote work is the big buzzword now. Everybody wants it, but it is extremely competitive to get a remote position now because everybody wants it. Now, in-house positions, they're starting to struggle to find people. So you're starting to see a shift. I know a few years ago, because of tech, more than a few years ago, the workplace became fun. It was you know, food trucks outside on Wednesdays and game rooms and air hockey tables and everything. And that worked for a little while, but now they're starting to incentivize in different ways. Uh, Emotional incentives is what they're doing. They're providing
Okay.
um, uh, wealth advisors. They are, instead of hot dog trucks outside on a Wednesday, they're doing yoga or something like that in-house to help relax people. The wealth advisors was a big one. I have a client doing that, and it received very well, because a lot of these employers or employees that are coming in, whether they be entry level or seasoned in their career, a lot of them don't know what to do or have never had that experience on how to manage their money.
Yeah.
So having a money advisor come in as just part of the perk is great, because it teaches them lessons that they're going to use outside of the employment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen, AJ, I think is, and it's important, it's super important to people today. I think since COVID, one of the things that is popping up in workplaces all around the world is employee well-being.
Yep.
And when you think about well-being, like one of the perks of well-being might be, financial advisors in there. But another thing is, well-being, work-life balance, those types of things. And mental fitness is, part of well-being, and it's becoming a large cultural shift to incorporate those into the everyday workplace of people, and even taking that a little bit further, which extending some of that to their families.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that are happening really as a result of COVID, and maybe even some of the remote work scenarios and things that are happening. You're right, remote work and now is becoming a little bit more coveted, allowing people a little bit more work-life balance. I've read some studies too in that you mentioned like stealing company time. I've also read some studies kind of almost contradicting that, in a way that the productivity of those 37 hours that they're spending at home are really productive, and those numbers are showing, kind of improved performance. And I think there's still so much more to do. I think some industries are seeing a little backslide and need a little bit more work to bring that up, and then other industries are seeing an uptick in productivity. So there is a balance to be found, and I think it's gonna take a little bit while longer. But I think one thing we can certainly agree on is that companies are working hard to try and find that balance.
They definitely are. And, some people can work from home, no problem. I do it. Tim does it. You do it. And we have that discipline. But I know when I first started working from home, I did not have that discipline. I'd be working and, the washing machine went off. Time to go switch my laundry, in the middle, go change it. So it does take a little bit to learn.
Yeah.
And some people have it, some people don't. Some people see remote work as, oh, great, I get to run to Target in the middle of the afternoon because I don't have time after work.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just, obviously it's not okay, but that's a trend that I do see a lot, especially in entry level and less tenured positions. Once you have a title of director, something like that, you have more work than you can possibly do. So there is no taking a break. But if you give someone that little bit of leeway in an entry level role, a lot of times they run with it. What's the saying? Give someone an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I've seen a lot of negativity with the remote work. You've seen productivity, and I haven't seen that too much. In tech, yes, but sales, marketing, other positions like so much.
Yeah, I think it requires a great deal of discipline. And one of the things if you're going to be doing remote, you got to hire for that. You got to hire for discipline,
100%.
conversation. Yeah,
That's a good point, Tom. Yeah. And you have to, have the right personalities, the right behavioral tendencies. And I think too, companies have to take the time to share what the expectation is. What does it look like to work from home? Right? And what are the expectations? And many companies are actually putting trackers on the laptops, right? So, they know when people are working, when they're not. I'm not a huge advocate of that kind of security scenario, but it is, if companies really want that to be successful, teach people how to do it. There's another trend too that I just want to bring up really quickly here. I know because we're coming to an end, but you're seeing it. I just read a huge article about it today. many companies are debating, thinking about, and even trialing 4-day work weeks, having 4 10-hour days. And how does that help with work-life balance? And, how do people that really want to work remote, are they more anxious to come back to the office to have a day off and work 4 times at the office? I think it's still too soon to tell. But it's gaining traction. Have you seen that, AJ?
I have. A lot of people are probably not going to like my answer to this, but I think, work-life balance, yes, you do have to have a work-life balance. I think people are taking it overboard. They're doing away with the whole work part. They just want a life balance. Work is work. Nobody's going to enjoy it. It does not need to it doesn't need to overtake your life, but it should be a good portion of it, because that's how people succeed.
Yeah.
So the work-life balance talk and the 4-day work week, I see it as extremely appealing to entry level, mid-level in their career, because whether they don't have the desire to advance, whether they're not at the point where they have so much work that they're bogged down, or I just don't understand, if most other companies are doing business 5 days a week, and you're not, even though you're working an extra 10 hours, you're not doing it selling product or whatever it is on that 5th day, and other companies are still working. I don't see how that could be productive. And I also don't see how tenured people in their career would only want a 4-day week. I know, to me, it would be a turnoff. Because I need 5 days. I don't want 10 hours a day on 4 of those. I want 5 full days, because other companies are open 5 days. My clients are open 5 days. My candidates work 5 days.
Yeah.
So I think it would work if across the board every company did it, or it just doesn't work. I just see it's about drive. I think.
That
I think that's
drive
really
and
good
discipline.
perspective, and I appreciate sharing it.
I think, Mayor, there's one other thing, AJ. There's one other thing I think it's important to talk about too, is just very briefly, is I think a lot of that depends on the manager's perspective. Whoever is managing those employees, whether they're in the office or whether they're remote, how do you train those managers to manage both kinds of employees? And I think part of the struggle has been they've not figured out how to manage remote workers.
You have to micromanage remote workers and not micromanage in-house. Nobody likes a micromanager, but the reality of it is, the only way to manage remote workers is through keystroke trackers, is to see how much time they're spending on the phone or whatever the case may be. And that's micromanaging. That's having your boss look over your shoulder, but
all the time. Yeah.
It's needed. It is 100% needed. Until people can prove that they are able to work remotely, I think it should be done for everybody, because it's still a relatively new thing.
Interesting perspective, which
Yeah.
is why we loved having you on, AJ.
Nobody likes micromanagers, but it's absolutely needed for remote.
Yeah, at times, that's right. Some people, so I think expanding that conversation.
Tim, I like your perspective too, that you really have to have an understanding of, who it is, who is better suited for those type of things. So we have tools, right, that understand behavioral tendencies of, really every employee and how that manager does. And we have tools like performance management tools that really set people up for success in those roles. And AJ, to your point, I think it depends on the person. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. People want to be appreciated for the skill sets they bring and the personalities that they bring to every day. So
the fact is, nobody wants to work. Everybody's idea would be to be
I want to work,
independently wealthy and not work. So the work-life balance, everybody's going to go towards more of the life balance than the work. That's just natural human instinct, because nobody wants to work.
Yeah, it's a great perspective and a great way to close this out. So a huge thank you, AJ,
Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and reminding us that landing your dream job is about strategy, not just about luck. So listeners, if you have those interview horror stories got you thinking, AJ and his team at Future Force offer recruiting for those hard to fill 90+ day senior level positions and resume services So get more of AJ's insights in his book, How to Not Get Hired. And be sure to hit subscribe for more insider tips on the Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll podcast, which you can find on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Absolutely. AJ, great conversation. Mara, the same. Terrific discussion. I love it. I think it gets people to think more and ask more questions. So if you're ready to solve your toughest people challenges and achieve some strategic business growth, tap into our expertise in talent optimization, leadership development, and mental fitness. For actionable insights, subscribe to and like our Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll podcast, and contact us at any time to help you transform or at least talk about how could you enhance your talent to achieve lasting results. We always talk about how do you get from what you want to achieve and accelerate the achievement of it. That's where we focus our energy. And so you can always reach me, 816-522-4777, or Mayor at 727-260-2085, or clearly on LinkedIn at any time.
And I'm going to throw something out there. On the candidate side, feel free to send your resumes over for a free review on competitiveness, ATS compatibility, and just overall formatting to www.freeresumerev.com for a free review and detailed feedback within 3 days.
Fantastic. So I'm Tim Stockwell, my sister Mary Stockwell, and our fantastic guest, AJ Vollmoeller. Thank you very much. I'll see you down on the beach, AJ.
Yes, sir. About an hour?
Wait. We don't want to give that work from home kind of thing a bad name.
Oh, I was just thinking about the work-life balance.
I'm thinking 5 o'clock. We'll meet on the beach.
Okay, we'll hit that life balance at 5 o'clock.
That's great.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Mayor.
Stay on the beach.
Bye, everybody.
That's a wrap.